Welcome back to Deep Talks, where we uncover the truth behind the legends. You know this face. I mean, you've seen it everywhere, right? On posters, t-shirts, coffee mugs. He's become the universal symbol for rebellion. But what if I told you the real story, the one behind that iconic image, is a whole lot more complicated and honestly a lot darker than you think? Let's get into it. So we have to start with the biggest puzzle of all. How in the world does a guy from a wealthy, upper-crust family who trained to be a medical doctor end up as the world's most famous guerrilla fighter? Seriously, it just doesn't add up. So let's follow the trail and see where it leads. Okay, so first, just forget the whole revolutionary image for a second. Picture this. Young Ernesto Guevara, growing up in Argentina. His family is well off, his dad's in real estate, and their home is packed with books. He's smart, he's well-read, and he's on his way to becoming a doctor. Oh, and he had crippling asthma his whole life, so bad he couldn't even serve in the military. This is not the origin story of a hardened warrior, is it? So what happened? What was the spark? Well, it all started with a road trip. And this wasn't some casual vacation. No, this was the journey that lit the fuse for a revolution, first inside his own mind, and then, he hoped, across the entire world. He and a friend get on a motorcycle, and they just go all the way from Argentina up to Miami. And for the very first time, he sees the real Latin America. He's not reading about it in a book anymore. He sees exploited miners, sick and impoverished people in the villages. He wrote that all he could see was misery, hunger, and disease. And he had this huge realization. This isn't just one country's problem. This is a continental wound. And when you see that much injustice, you start looking for an explanation. For Che, he found it in an idea called dependency theory. Now, this sounds academic, but the idea is actually pretty simple. It basically says the whole global economic game is rigged. It's not an accident that poor countries stay poor. The system is built that way. Here's how it works. Think about it like this. A poor country sells its raw coffee beans for pennies. Then, some big corporation in a rich country roasts them, packages them up, and sells that instant coffee back to the same poor country for dollars. All the real money, all the value is made somewhere else. So wealth is constantly being siphoned away. For Che, this was it. This was the enemy. And he decided the only way to break this cycle was through violent revolution. So, armed with this powerful new ideology, Che wasn't looking to open a medical practice anymore. He was looking for a war. This is the moment the doctor hangs up his stethoscope, picks up a rifle, and becomes Comandante Che. And his rise was just meteoric. First, he's in Guatemala and sees a democratically elected government get overthrown in a CIA-backed coup. For him, that was all the proof he needed of American imperialism. He flees to Mexico, and that's where he bumps into Fidel and Raul Castro. He's found his cause. He joins their mission to liberate Cuba, but it is a total disaster at first. Out of 82 guys who set sail for Cuba, only 22 even survived the landing. But from that tiny group, over 2 years of brutal fighting in the mountains, Che goes from being their medic to one of their top commanders. And get this, they were a ragtag army of maybe 3,000 fighters at their peak, and they went up against a professional, American-funded army of over 20,000 soldiers, and they won. I mean, it's an incredible story. This is the moment the myth of Che, the heroic liberator, is really born. Okay, but here's the thing. Winning a war and actually running a country are two completely different things. And this is where the heroic story that you thought you knew takes a really sharp, dark turn. We have to talk about the other side of Che Guevara now. So, after the victory, what was the first big job the new government gave to this doctor, this healer? Wait for it, they put him in charge of La Cabaña prison. His new job was to oversee the trials and executions of anyone they called an enemy of the state. Let me say that again. The healer became the state's chief executioner. And it didn't stop there. They made him Minister of Industry and put him in charge of the central bank. His grand plan? To ditch sugar, Cuba's #1 export, its main economic engine, and try to build heavy industry overnight. The result? An absolute, complete fiasco that totally wrecked the Cuban economy. So how did he think this was all going to work? Well, he had this idea of creating what he called the new man. This was supposed to be a new kind of socialist citizen who wouldn't work for something as selfish as a paycheck. No. They would work for pure moral duty to the cause. He truly believed you could run an entire country's economy on idealism. Turns out, you really can't. So Che got more and more frustrated with the day-to-day grind of governing. He was a revolutionary, not some pencil-pushing bureaucrat. His solution? Cuba was too small for him. He decided he had to leave and export his revolution to the rest of the world. But everything just fell apart, and fast. In 1965, he just vanishes from Cuba. He pops up in Congo, trying to start a revolution there. Total failure. So he tries again, this time in Bolivia. But now the CIA is all over him. His little group of fighters gets cornered, and in October of 1967, he's captured by Bolivian forces and executed on the spot. But even his death is wrapped in mystery. According to his captors, some of his last words were, "I was betrayed," which many have taken to mean that Fidel Castro left him high and dry in Bolivia. Did Fidel see Che as a rival? Was he tired of his rigid, dogmatic ideas? It adds this whole political thriller element to his end. We'll probably never know for sure. So, after all that, let's go back to that t-shirt. Because in death, Che was no longer a failed economist or a defeated guerrilla. He became a martyr. And the myth? Well, the myth became way more powerful than the man ever was. And this is the paradox of Che Guevara. You have to somehow hold both of these truths in your head at the same time. On one hand, yes, he is this powerful symbol of standing up for the little guy against impossible odds. But on the other hand, the man himself was a rigid, uncompromising killer who drove an economy straight into a wall. His principles were absolute and absolutely terrifying. And if you need any proof of just how extreme his ideology was, just look at this quote. This is after the Cuban Missile Crisis, which almost ended human civilization. Che said that if the revolutionaries had been in control of the nukes, they would have fired them. The death of millions of people, he saw that as a perfectly acceptable price to pay to defeat imperialism. Just let that sink in for a minute. Which brings us right back to where we started. That face on the t-shirt isn't just a simple symbol of rebellion. It's the face of a doctor, a hero, an executioner, a failure, and a martyr, all rolled into one. So when we see that icon, which part of the story are we actually choosing to endorse? And maybe more importantly, which part are we choosing to forget?